We need to talk about Zilla Fatu, because the timeline surrounding this guy just became a whole lot more real, and almost every signal WWE has been sending seems to point in the exact same direction. Welcome back to WWE Galaxy. I'm Nova. But before we get into everything, I have to make a quick correction, because some of you absolutely made sure I knew about it in the comments last time. I called Zilla Jacob Fatu's brother. He's not. They're cousins. So apparently, I still have some family tree homework to finish. I appreciate everybody who kept me honest, even if a few of those comments made it sound like I had committed a crime against the Samoan family just by getting one relationship wrong. Now, if you're not already familiar with Zilla Fatu, let's get the basics straight. Zilla is the son of the late great Umaga, and his wrestling journey began at Reality of Wrestling, Booker T's school. He made his official debut back in 2023, and since then, he has been absolutely tearing through the independent wrestling scene. We're talking multiple championships, meaningful experience, and genuine credibility. This isn't some completely untested rookie who just showed up and happens to have a famous last name. He's already been out there building a reputation for himself. And yes, the family connection matters here, especially because we've now established the family tree correctly. Umaga was brothers with Rikishi and Sam Fatu, which makes Zilla the cousin of Jimmy and Jey Uso, as well as the cousin of Jacob Fatu. So naturally, the second Zilla's name comes up, everybody's mind immediately goes to the bloodline. That instinct is absolutely understandable, even though I managed to get the exact relationship wrong the first time. This past weekend, Zilla defended his Crown Jewel Championship against Amazing Red at House of Glory, and he lost the match. Normally, you could look at that as simply another result on an independent wrestling show. But what happened afterward is the part that really caught my attention. The entire thing felt like a scripted farewell. The House of Glory crowd gave Zilla a huge send-off, and the commentary team openly acknowledged that he was leaving the company. That's a pretty significant signal, when a promotion gives one of its biggest stars a goodbye like that, especially while openly talking about him moving on. It usually means everybody involved already knows there's another chapter waiting for him somewhere else. Now, am I sitting here saying that is absolute, undeniable proof that Zilla is immediately WWE bound? No. I'm not going to pretend we have something confirmed when we don't. But the timing and the circumstances are sitting right there in front of us. And honestly, when I watched that farewell, my first thought wasn't even NXT. My immediate reaction was, put this guy on Raw or SmackDown right now. Give him the biggest stage available, and let's find out what happens. If I'm being completely honest, part of me still wants WWE to do exactly that. I would absolutely tune in for it. But here's the problem. Wanting something because it sounds exciting isn't always the same thing as believing it's the smartest move. And after actually thinking about the situation instead of just reacting to the hype, I've landed somewhere a little different. I don't think Zilla is quite ready for the main roster yet, and more importantly, I don't think WWE believes he needs to be there immediately either. I could be completely wrong, and if WWE proves me wrong tomorrow, I'll gladly admit it. But right now, NXT makes more sense. Just look at the blueprint WWE already has sitting in front of them with Solo Sikoa. Solo wasn't immediately thrown onto Raw or SmackDown the second he arrived. He spent legitimate time in NXT first. That period allowed him to develop his character, sharpen his in-ring ability, figure out his presentation, and most importantly, understand who Solo Sikoa actually was as a performer before the enormous bloodline spotlight was placed on him. That development period mattered. When the larger story eventually arrived, Solo had something established underneath it. He wasn't simply a guy standing there because of his family name. He had already started becoming his own character. And that's something Zilla needs as well, because look at what he's actually leaving behind. This isn't a wrestler walking away from an independent promotion with nothing to show for himself. Zilla has already collected championship runs across multiple promotions. He's had crowds that genuinely wanted to see him succeed. He's had opportunities to perform in front of WWE audiences through NXT special events, and people were already reacting to him before he was officially signed. That's important. He has already built something that belongs to him, completely separate from the Umaga name and the bloodline connection. And honestly, that makes the argument for NXT stronger, not weaker. Zilla wouldn't be arriving there because WWE thinks he needs to start from zero. He'd be arriving with a head start. He's already got the physical presence, the family history, the independent experience, and the audience interest. What NXT can give him is the television experience and character development that will allow him to turn all of those pieces into something much bigger when the main roster opportunity eventually comes. Now let's talk about the timing, because this is where I think people aren't looking closely enough. The current state of NXT actually lines up extremely well with Zilla arriving there. Under Robert Stone, the brand has been moving toward a new phase. Stone took over full-time back in March after Ava left, and he's been very vocal about wanting new talent to step up and make their mark. That's not just something you can casually overlook. NXT has already lost major established names to the main roster, including Oba Femi and Gable Steveson, which creates legitimate openings near the top of the card. That means there is room. Real room. WWE doesn't have to squeeze Zilla into an already overcrowded situation and hope fans figure out why he's there. He could enter NXT at exactly the moment the brand needs another major presence near the top of the card. A promotion that's actively looking for fresh faces and new main event level talent is a pretty ideal landing spot for someone like him. Instead of throwing him into an established division and making him fight for whatever space is available, WWE could make him part of the process of rebuilding that division around a new generation. And if this kind of prediction is exactly why you come to the channel, hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps me keep following stories like this, and it also gives me another chance to prove that I have finally learned the difference between cousins and brothers in this family. I'm working on it. But let's get into the reporting, because this isn't simply me connecting random dots and calling it a prediction. There has been actual reporting pointing in this direction. Dave Meltzer, through the Wrestling Observer newsletter, reported that Zilla is expected to start with WWE soon, and that report specifically pointed toward NXT as the likely starting point before any potential main roster involvement. That's a pretty important piece of information when you're trying to figure out what WWE's plan could look like. Then there's Paul Heyman, who has publicly made it clear that WWE would be making a mistake if they didn't sign Zilla at the first opportunity. Put all of that together, and the picture starts looking much clearer. You've got the son of a legendary WWE name, a wrestler who has already established himself independently, legitimate credibility outside WWE, public interest from people connected to the company, and reporting that specifically identifies NXT as the likely first destination. At a certain point, that stops looking like one isolated rumor and starts looking like a pattern. You can still call it speculation because nothing matters until WWE actually announces something, but there are enough pieces here that the NXT theory makes a lot more sense than people might realize. And let's think about what an actual year in NXT could do for Zilla strategically. The biggest benefit would be giving him the opportunity to establish an identity that doesn't immediately revolve around somebody else. He needs to be more than just Umaga's son. He needs to be more than Jacob Fatu's cousin. And yes, I'm going to keep saying cousin for the rest of my life after the last video. If Zilla gets that time, he can develop his own in-ring style, find his own voice on the microphone, and figure out what kind of performer he wants to be before he's suddenly standing next to Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu, or the rest of the bloodline with an enormous amount of pressure attached to him. That's a completely different situation. If he eventually reaches the main roster after establishing himself in NXT, the arrival carries more weight. Instead of the audience seeing, "Here comes another member of the famous family," they can see someone who has already proven that he belongs on WWE television. He's already survived NXT. He's already built a following. He's already developed a character. Now the bloodline connection becomes an addition to his story, instead of being the entire story. And there's another practical advantage that shouldn't be ignored. NXT gives WWE Creative a controlled environment where they can experiment with Zilla's character before committing him to a direction on Raw or SmackDown. If something doesn't work immediately, that's much easier to adjust in NXT than it is when you're putting a new wrestler in front of millions of viewers on the main roster. WWE gets the chance to learn what works, what doesn't, and what makes Zilla stand out. But I do want to give the other argument its fair shot, because there is a legitimate case for skipping NXT entirely. WWE has done it before. When the company believes a wrestler is ready, they've bypassed the developmental stage and sent talent directly into the main roster environment. And with Zilla already connected to one of the biggest ongoing stories in WWE, you can absolutely argue that waiting could cost him momentum. That's the biggest danger with the slower approach. Wrestling stories move incredibly fast. The bloodline landscape that exists today might look completely different 6 months from now. If Zilla spends a long stretch in NXT before joining the main roster, the exact circumstances that make his family connection so compelling right now could change. Roman Reigns could be in a completely different position. Jacob Fatu could be involved in another feud. The bloodline itself could look nothing like it does today. So I completely understand why some fans want WWE to strike while the iron is hot. If the audience is already talking about Zilla, if the farewell is happening now, and if the family connection is already generating this much attention, why wait? Put him in the fire and see what he can do. That's a real argument, and I don't think it's crazy at all. Even with that said, though, I still think the patient route is the smarter one. And that brings me to the timeline I actually believe we're looking at. My prediction is that Zilla signs with WWE relatively soon, especially considering the way the House of Glory farewell played out and the strength of the reports surrounding him. I expect NXT to be his first stop rather than Raw or SmackDown. He spends meaningful time there, builds his character on his own terms, establishes himself as more than simply a member of a legendary wrestling family, and becomes one of the fresh, top-of-the-card names that NXT is currently looking for. Then, somewhere down the road, maybe 6 months from now, maybe closer to a year, WWE activates the bloodline connection, and that's when things could get really interesting. By that point, Zilla isn't just walking onto the main roster because he's Umaga's son. He's arriving as a wrestler who has already proven himself inside WWE. The family connection then becomes an event instead of an introduction. So that's where I stand right now. Do you think WWE takes the patient route and sends Zilla Fatu through NXT first, or do you think they're going to skip all of that and throw him straight into the main roster fire? Because after the House of Glory farewell, the timing feels way too deliberate to ignore. Let me know what you think in the comments. And this time, if I somehow manage to get another piece of the family tree wrong, feel free to correct me. Just maybe be gentle about it. If this timeline made sense to you, give the video a like, subscribe if you're new, and stick around because I'm going to keep tracking this story all the way to the moment Zilla Fatu finally makes his WWE debut. I'm Nova, and this is WWE Galaxy.